In this session, we're going to see how to graph a linear equation in two variables. Let's see what our helpful hint says about that. Find three ordered pairs that are solutions to the given equation. Be sure to replace x and y with the correct values. Verify that the three ordered pairs on the graph form a straight line. Double check to make sure you have plotted the points correctly. Complete calculations very carefully. Now let's graph a line. We have graph y equals 3x plus 1. So we want to choose 3 points for our graph. Why? Because 3 points will help us determine if we've made a mistake. Because our graph needs to form a straight line, the 3 points should form a straight line. So let's pick 3 points. Now using a table of values will help us keep our points straight. So I'm going to choose the point 0, 1, and -1 for x. My equation is y equals 3x plus 1. I chose values for x because it makes the problem easier to work. I just have to multiply the x value by 3 and then add 1. I could have chose values for y, but for this particular equation, choosing a value for x is easier. I also chose small numbers, and I wanted to include at least one negative number so I can get a good picture of the graph, both in the positive part of the graph and the negative. So now that you've selected 3 points, let's do our calculations. First, we replace x by 0, and we have y equals 3 times 0 plus 1. Therefore, y equals 1. And we put 1 in our box right here. So our first ordered pair is 0, 1. Now let's write the equation again. Y equals 3x plus 1. Now this time we're going to substitute 1. So we put 1 in. We have 3 times 1 plus 1. Therefore, y equals 4. Again, we write 4 in our table. Now we have 2 ordered pairs here, 0, 1, 1, 4. Notice I'm writing out my steps very carefully to be sure that my calculations are correct. So take the time to write out these steps. It will really help you with accuracy. Let's do our last one. We have y equals 3x plus 1. This time I'm substituting -1 in for x. I'm writing out my steps very carefully. Now I have -3 plus 1 equals -2. So I have y equals -2. Now I have 3 points, and I'm going to plot them and see if I get a straight line. Let's plot these points. First, we have the point 0, 1. We start at the origin 0, and we move up 1. That's our first point. The next point is x equals 1, y equals 4, the point 1, 4. So we go over 1 in the x direction and up 1, 2, 3, 4, and we plot our point right here. And that's our second point, 1, 4. Now, our last point is -1, -2. That means, you see, and the chart helps you see which direction you move. I'm moving -1 in the x direction and -2 in the y direction. So I move over -1, then down -2, and I put my point right at that point. Now we connect the points, and we can see we get a straight line. This tells us that this is the graph of the solutions to this equation. It also tells us that we didn't make a calculation error because we got a straight line. It's a good idea to label the graph too. Y equals 3x plus 1. So when you're graphing an equation, use a table of values so that you can keep track of your points and you don't mix up your x and your y points. Write out your steps carefully, very carefully, so that if, say for example, the line was not straight, you can easily check your points to see which ones weren't correct. And then always verify that you get a straight line, and it's a good idea to label your graph. Now try graphing a few problems.